You live and you learn. You fry and you cry. Hey guys, it's Alex, and today I'm gonna be taking you behind the scenes at Tasty to show you how to make a mozzarella stick lasagna. You all know I can get a little messy in the kitchen, so today I'm gonna try to stay on top of that mess with help from Scotch-Brite. Keyword try. Okay, so I'm gonna start by making the pasta. Yes, I'm going to be making this pasta from scratch because this ain't no regular mozzarella stick lasagna. I'm gonna start with 3 cups of flour, and then I'm gonna sprinkle that with a teaspoon of salt. So now, you have to make like a little well in the center of the flour. I'm gonna put 3 eggs right in the center of the well. You have to be a little careful so that the eggs stay in the well because you're gonna have a mess otherwise. Now, just a tablespoon of olive oil right on there. So now I'm very carefully going to start beating the eggs, and I'll slowly incorporate the flour into them. But again, you have to do this very carefully because you don't want any of your eggs to start leaking out and break the damn wall. The wall is like a dam. You can slowly start to incorporate the flour from the well into the middle and start to thicken it up so it starts turning into a dough. I don't know what this hand is doing, just in case. And don't worry if it's a little lumpy at first. It'll turn into a smooth, beautiful pasta dough. Don't be afraid of the mess. You know what? That's why you put on an apron. It's turning into more of like a dough at this point. Just gonna keep gathering it together. I feel like I always make things that end up being more of like a workout. Cooking is supposed to be enjoyable. So I'm gonna knead this dough for about 10 more minutes, then we're gonna let it rest, and then it should be good to roll out. Okay, so our dough has rested. This will help allow your flour in the dough to hydrate. So before I start rolling this out, I am gonna cut our dough into 4 pieces. I'm gonna first roll that out a little. So then I'm going to start feeding this through our pasta roller. This is going kind of tough. Oh, I already messed something up. You actually need to start at the lowest setting because that is like the widest setting, and you gradually get smaller and smaller and smaller. I started at 6, where I'm actually supposed to start at 1. Not the end of the world. I'm just gonna put this back together. All right, so we're on 1. I am going to start. Yeah, that's much easier. Now, as your pasta gets thin, you have to just be a little bit more gentle with it. It gets just a little trickier as it gets longer. Almost there. Just get that out of there. Don't want it to stick together, but, oh no. Maybe I should have put a little more semolina on that one. Listen, it's lasagna though, so you just layer that stuff. No one will notice, right? So I am going to just feed it through with this hand, but then I'm gonna switch to this hand and keep it flat rather than letting it bunch on top of itself. Whoop. Grabbing it over here. Yeah, so not letting it ribbon up underneath the pasta maker is making like a world of a difference. All right, number 7, almost there. Yeah, that one went a lot smoother. So the way they say you know your pasta is done is when you can just barely see through it, and look, you can see my hand. Just gonna put that on here, keep it moving. Okay, time for the sauce, which is, I guess, the easier part of this whole recipe. So first I'm gonna add a little bit, what is this thing? So ideally just about a tablespoon of oil, but this is fine. Now I'm gonna add in my onions. I'm gonna let these kind of soften up before I add in anything else. You can always just use regular marinara sauce if you're making this recipe at home, but if you're already gonna go through the trouble of making your homemade pasta, you might as well make a fresh sauce, right? All All right, so now that the onions have softened up and are a little translucent, I'm gonna add in our garlic. Right in there. Get that going for a couple more minutes. I'm also gonna throw in some of our salt. And now we are ready for our tomatoes. Just gonna pour that all right in there. Good thing I'm wearing an apron over my white shirt. And lastly, our Italian seasoning. So now I'm just gonna let this simmer for about 30 minutes just to bring all of those flavors together, and that's our sauce. All right, moving on to our mozzarella sticks. So we have flour, our egg wash, which is egg and water, and then our panko. So before we start, I'm also gonna add some seasonings to our panko. So I have some onion powder, some garlic powder, some dried parsley, some dried oregano, and some salt. So I'm just gonna mix that up. So now we're gonna dredge our mozzarella sticks in our breading. So dredging can be kind of a messy process, but there are a couple of tricks that you can use to keep it a little more clean, which is using both of your hands. So one of your hands will be a dry hand, and one of your hand will be a wet hand. Although I always mix them up. So wet hand into there, wet hand back in there, and got our first one. Okay, last one. So the reason we're going back into the egg after the panko is just to get that extra layer of that breading on there so that when we fry it, it will be all nice and golden and crispy. So now I'm gonna pop these in the freezer so they can set before we fry. Okay, time to fry. So I'm gonna start just plopping them in here to this oil. So I'm looking to get a nice golden brown color on the outside and a nice gooey, cheesy, melty center on the inside. It seems like the oil may be a little bit too hot because these are cooking pretty fast. We've got a really nice golden brown color, but we've got no cheese pull. We need to lower the temperature of the oil so that the inside of the mozzarella stick has a chance to melt before the outside completely burns. All right, so I've brought my oil temperature down to about 325. So this should be better in making sure our cheese melts before the outside gets nice and golden brown. Frying can be a little intimidating to some people. I always encourage you to use a thermometer when you're frying. Just stay pretty organized and clean, which isn't really my strong suit, but. All right, so we've got these all fried. I'm just gonna test one to make sure we've got that cheese pull. Yes, look at that. All right, now that we finally got our mozzarella sticks right, it's time to layer our lasagna. So I'm gonna start with our red sauce. Go at the bottom of the pan. And now we're gonna add our noodles. So you could really layer this however you feel called to, but this is how I'm gonna do it. Now I'm gonna start with our ricotta. Now I'm gonna add some spinach, because we gotta stay a little healthy among all of this cheese. Some basil, lovely. And then some shredded mozzarella cheese. Now I'm gonna add a couple more layers of noodle, our fresh made pasta. It's looking so good. So now I'm going to add a little bit more of our marinara sauce. And this is the fun layer because we're gonna be adding our mozzarella sticks in here. This is crazy, but I'm crazy, so. Now I'm gonna put a little bit more sauce on top of these. Yum, it actually smells so good. I'm drooling, or salivating, not drooling. That'd be kind of gross. It's getting a little messy, but that's okay. So now with another layer of our noodle, so then another layer of our ricotta, more greens, a little cheese, and our final layer of pasta. Beautiful. And then one last little bit of marinara on top, just to, hide any of those mistakes. And of course, top it off with a little bit more shredded cheese, and voila. All right, so now I'm going to pop this in the oven and bake our lasagna for about 30 minutes, which is the perfect amount of time for me to get going on cleaning up this mess. So to clean up, I'm gonna be using the new Scotch-Brite soap control dish wand. It has a button right here to control when and where you use soap. There's also a scraper on the back for stuck-on food. I don't generally love doing dishes, but this dish wand makes it a whole lot easier. All right, look at that. It looks and smells so good. I can't wait to cut into this thing. The most satisfying part of making lasagna. Getting to see all of those layers. Oh yeah. All right, now for the best part. We get to try it. Now that is a lasagna.